Gentlemen, meet Paul Papadimitriou.
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much. Yeah, I landed at 4:30 this morning, so I slept literally 1 hour in the plane and 2 hours in the hotel, and I almost missed my... I was doing the opening panel, say I'm twice on stage today. Sorry, guys. So let's see if that works. And of course, I'm the one retaining you from lunch. I promise you I'm not going to go too long today. Papadimitriou, see that thing doesn't work. Papadimitriou, it's Greek. I was actually born in Switzerland. I used to live in Japan. I used to live in Manila in the Philippines. I've lived in Cyprus as well, and I relocated to London because in Europe it's probably maybe not the best city, but a very cool city to live in. Oh, and this is starting. So what I do, I help companies figure out innovation, big companies all around the world. I've done that for the past 10 years. But today, what I'm going to ask you is slightly different, because I've been working, and we hear always these terms about disruption, what it means, how do we innovate in a company, how do we innovate in a product, and I do that for a living, but still I see the same questions happening over and over again. I travel all around the world. I'm very lucky. I have clients in almost 40 countries, so I've worked in Southeast Asia, I work in Latin America, I work obviously in Europe, Western and Eastern, I work in China as well, I work in the Middle East as well. I actually go often, I know there's a few Lebanese here, I go very often to Beirut, one of my favorite cities in the world. I obviously often come to Dubai, but one question I wanted to ask you today is, how do you travel? I know I travel a lot. How do you travel? Travel is many things to many people. For some people, travel is an obligation. It's a business. You have to, because you have to take the plane for business. For other people, it's because you want to do tourism. For other people, you need to see back your family. For other people, there's many the reasons why you would travel. For me, I travel because I like airplanes. I know it's a bit stupid, but I really love being in an airplane. And I'm going to tell you why. First, when I see the aircraft, I have a sense of wonder. I'm still a kid when I see an aircraft. I'm like, wow, I take pictures. I took a flight from Bangkok to Hong Kong 2 weeks ago, and I was in the nose of a 747, and I took, honestly, 300 pictures of that freaking aircraft, and the flight crew didn't know what to do with me. He says, who is that guy? Where is he? Because I love that. And what it is actually technology that I love. This is the sense of wonder. The second thing that it does is place lag. Place lag is a term that was invented by a pilot, actually, a 747 pilot for British Airways. I wrote a book that's called Skyfaring. I recommend it to you, even if you don't like airplanes. It's very nice. It's this feeling, if you ever have done long-haul travel, when you arrive in a new city, and you've done 12 hours in a plane, 8 hours in a plane, and you arrive, you have your jet lag that is in place. You wake up in the middle of the night. For me, my best memories when I was commuting between Europe and Tokyo, I would actually wake up at 3 a.m. in Tokyo because I couldn't sleep, and you go out for a walk and the city is still asleep. Or when I landed this morning here in Dubai, it was 4:30, the city was still 33 degrees, for crying out loud. I don't know how you leave here. And I went for a little walk. I love this. This is a place like, when you're not sure, your body is not sure where it is anymore because you've actually not been adapted yet to the new place. That's the second reason why I love travel. The third reason that I love traveling with airplanes is because, for me, although I look like an extrovert because I'm on stage and I'm opening my arms and I'm shouting in a microphone, I hope I'm not waking you up too much, I actually am an introvert. I'm actually someone who likes to be alone. So, of course, when I'm in a plane, I don't put the Wi-Fi on. I never use the Wi-Fi, although I love that technology. I actually just my alone time, which is why the longer the travel is, the best it is. Travel for 12 hours on my own, I just love it. I put my noise-canceling headphones, and I'm alone. But what is this? What I've just described you, these three words, what do they represent? They represent a journey. And we heard the term journey. Today, you've heard it this morning in both stages. Journeys. People talk about journeys all the time. So I just described you one. This is how I feel when I travel. But we are all actually on journeys. Whether it's a business, whether it's your life, whether when you travel, obviously, you are all on journeys. And if I replace these three words that I mentioned, introspection, place like, and wonder, I can translate them into stuff that actually works for you. Identity, discovery, and technology. In other words, these are three questions I ask at every time I work with a company. Every part of my own private life, I always ask the same questions. Who are we? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? This is a journey. You can resolve most of your business issues, most of your marketing issues, most of your innovation issues, but also most of your personal, private issues by answering these three questions. Who are we? Where do we want to go? How do we get there? Technology, everybody talks about technology. The last bit, that's the sexy part. Everybody keeps talking about technology, 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 because it goes fast, because we have gadgets, because we're becoming all geeks. The term geek is actually overused because suddenly we all are, because we all have an iPhone, an Android phone. Technology is nice, but technology is being overplayed these days. Why? Of course, because it goes faster. Technology has always been with us. If you look at the Stone Age, that was already the first use of technology. All these things you see on the screen here were technologies. A newspaper is a technology, so the printing machine is a technology. Steam was a technology. It's nothing new. The newest bit is obviously that it goes faster, hence the line I put there on the slide. If you look at the past 70 years, you'll see that every decade or so there's a new paradigm shift in technology, a new type of technology that changes the game. And obviously, lately, it has been mobility. The smartphone's a big bubble you see here on the screen. And if you look at the numbers, they've been actually exponentially augmenting. And we are reaching now this new age where basically technology will be surrounding us so much that I'm not even sure it's worth counting anymore. There'll be billions of devices. Some people talk about 100 billion of devices. Between those we have you in pocket, those you have in front of you, and don't worry, you can keep tweeting and WhatsApping and Vibering. I'm fine if you don't listen, that's okay. We'll have that, but also we'll have all the other pieces of technology that are passive devices that are listening, that are talking back to the devices, etc. This is massive. And this is why we keep talking. This is why we have conferences like that where you talk about technology. But again, is it really what matters? One other funny bit to describe the speed of technology is this, is the rate of adoption of a technology. It took, as you can see, 75 years for the phone with a cable, the old one. 75 years for the phone to be adopted by 100 million users on Earth. It took 1 year to do what? The little gums were a hint. For Candy Crush to reach 100 million users on Earth. And that's another way to see that technology is going faster. This is why it's so sexy. This is why we keep talking about it. And this is also why suddenly we start talking about, the rise of the robots. Supposedly all the robots will take our jobs. We won't have jobs anymore. Supposedly, if you're on the other side, everything will go so fine. You will be living in a Star Trek world where everybody is so fucking happy. People are either scared of technology or people are so much in love about technology that they forget about the rest. This is not the world this is not how we're supposed to see the world, especially because for me, technology is only one thing, is what we invent as humans to make our lives better. That's it. Technology, the only definition is what we invent as people, as humans, to make our lives better. We shouldn't have such an emphasis on technology. Technology is only the last bit, and of course now that I click it's not working. Technology is only the last bit of these three words I put before. Identity, discovery, technology. This is a how do we get there part. How do we make our lives better? It shouldn't be the first question you ask yourselves. It shouldn't be the focus of whether you're an innovator, whether you're creating a business. I work with a lot of startups around the world. I actually invest in startups. I just invested in one actually yesterday, in early stage startups. It's always the first bit is identity, discovery, technology comes last to me. And I think all the great businesses were made out of this. Journeys. An example, of course, the example of travel I gave you is very easy to understand. If you've ever taken a plane, the sense of journey is very easy to understand. You have to make a decision, and all of those who do that, you know that, to make a decision, to decide, I'm going to buy a plane ticket. I want to go there. I want to go to, Spain, for all that matters. So you have to go through the process of thinking how you get there. And this is influenced by who you are, because you make the decisions that you want to make about the destination of travel because of who you are, because of the obligations you have. Only the last bit is how will I get there, which is the plane, which is maybe the airlines for you, maybe Emirates because you live here. But this is only the last bit. The same happens with marketing. I was tasked to launch, Ubuntu is a Linux distribution, so it's an OS like iOS, like Windows, etc. I was tasked to launch, to help them launch Ubuntu Mobile, so the mobile version of that in China and in Europe. This is how I did it. We started by saying, we're thinking, what is the customer that will want to acquire that technology? We have to first think about who was the customer? Who are we? And where does he want to go? What does he want, what does she want to do with that technology? And only then is how we would get there, which is the strategy we applied to do marketing. It was a successful launch. I'm very, very pleased with that. Innovation is the same thing. When you create innovation, which I'm not defining on purpose, but innovation has the same type of thing, the same type of dynamic. You start by thinking that the innovation comes because of who you are, because you want to solve a problem. If, for instance, startups are supposed to solve one problem, this is the second bit. Where do I want to go? I want to solve that problem. And then you solve it. How do you get there? Then the technology comes. It's never about a technology. If you're a startup and you're pitching me your technology, I'm not going to listen to you. If you tell me who you are, why you are doing this, why you are doing that startup, and then you're telling me what are you solving as a problem, these are the answers to the first two questions. And then only you can tell me about whatever technology you're inventing or reinventing or remixing to actually create that new journey. These questions, who are we, where do we want to go, how do we get there? Identity, discovery, technology. And if you think about it, the biggest disruption is actually identity. It's the first question. The fact that we can all communicate, of course, travel helps a lot. We can actually physically go to places. Low-cost travel, like you can transverse Europe for the price of a cab fare. My parents were not able to do that. My father, born in 1932, had to take 70 hours of trains to come from Greece to Switzerland, where he relocated in 1951. He could only see his parents every 4 years because he didn't have the money. We can now do that, but that has changed the way we identify ourselves. This is the real disruption. It's not the technology disruption, it's the answer to the first question, who we are as human beings, how we relate to each other. And this creates all these problems with the nations nowadays. Why the hell do you think people are thinking about voting Trump in the US? Why do you think that in Austria we were about to have a far-right president? It was just so close, it was 50-50. Because people are scared. Because that technology that goes so fast that we put so much emphasis on is reshaping who we are, but people have lost the answers about who they are, thus they react with fear. This has always been the case. And if you don't answer that first question, and again, it applies also to businesses, it applies also to innovation, but it applies to all of us as a society, if we don't answer that first question, the identity, that's a real disruption. This is how we're going to change. If we have a problem because social media has become television, and all we see is these debates and people disagreeing, people just saying, like, a very simplistic way of thinking. You have to think there's no box. People tell me, Paul, you have to think about you have to think outside the box. I say there's no box. Don't think outside the box. Think that there is no box. Think about who you are, who you want to be. And if you start with that, you'll be, trust me, successful. I've done that. I've changed my life many times. I've changed my life actually exactly 10 years ago today. About today. I totally changed. I quit my girlfriend. I quit my job. I lost 70 pounds. That's about 38 kilos. I changed my life. There was a trigger. There's always a trigger. But the same thing applies to companies. Why do you think corporations are now suddenly investing in startups or creating VC arms or creating innovation centers either in the Silicon Valley within themselves? I help them do that. Why do they do that? Because who they are is changing. Because of the context that's changing around them. I always see the three same questions come at play. That creates something that I call innovation inequality. You know, we all talk about income inequality, or supposedly some people have become very rich, and some other people have nothing, and that gap is actually widening. The same thing happens with innovation. The companies that innovate faster and faster and faster. The 10% of the companies, this is roughly the numbers according to Harvard studies, 10% of the companies are innovating so fast that they're leaving everybody else behind. And the same applies on a personal level. That digital divide we call, in some countries don't have access to technology, whilst others have. You know, we hear people telling that one day we'll be able to live forever because of new technology. We'll have nanotechnology implemented in our bodies. The problem is at the very beginning, this technology will be so expensive that it will be only limited to a limited few. And this limited few will have more and more access with exact technologies, and the rest of us, we won't have access to technologies. It creates innovation inequality. Again, who are we? Why do we want that world, or we don't? We have to ask that question if we want to go forward. We have the biggest opportunity in the world ever. I think it's exactly the time we live. I know it's a complex time. I know it's difficult because of a few things. First, it's the largest middle-class emergence ever. There will be 2.5 billion people being middle class. What does it mean? It means that they will have purchasing power. Of course, a lot of it is fueled by China and India, but there will suddenly be like a shit ton of new customers, shit ton of new users that will be able to be your customers, your users, or simply your friends, or maybe your family. Maybe you'll actually marry one day. This is changing the world much further than technology. Of course, it is helped by technology. It's a circle. I'm simplifying on purpose. But this is really one big opportunity. And in it, for me, the biggest opportunity is this. There will be 1 billion women entering the workforce within the next 10 years in the world. 1 billion women. The world is not made for women. The world we live in was invented by men. Even the level of the air conditioning, because you love your air conditioning here being so low, when an air conditioning manufacturer sells you the air conditioning unit, it has a standard level, which is, the normal level. That normal level was made for males. This is why in every corporate office in the world, you have the females that tell you, it's so fucking cold, and the men say, no, it's fine. The world was made for men. The same applies when every type of tool, the drilling tools, when you take a drilling tool, to do holes in the wall, the forward part was done around the hand of a man. Hence, it seems too big for women. The world was not made for women. And I tell them that I work with corporates, and when you look at their board, old, white males. How will they understand the world of women if they're only old white males at a corporate board level? There's no way. This is a huge opportunity. This is the biggest opportunity. In the next 10 years, 1 billion women will enter the workforce. And by the way, guys, 82% of the purchasing decisions are made by women in the world. 82%. We want to believe as men that we decide everything, but that's not true. Women decide, actually. So we have to change our ways of talking to the customer or selling to the customer at a DNA level of corporates if we want to actually be successful. And for me, these companies that will understand that are understanding that, will be the ones that will be successful. There will also the age shift. I used to live in Japan, as I told you. We live in a world where people are getting older, we're making less kids. Well, we have to adapt to that. It will happen. There's also the urban shift. More and more people are living in cities. We'll have to adapt to that. You guys are doing good work, actually, here in Dubai. And the opportunity, a lot of people, especially startups, tell me, Paul, no, there's no money. It's so hard to find money. The largest wealth transfer ever that happened in the history of mankind is happening right now. 17 trillion, this depends on these studies, $17 trillion will exchange hands. Why? Because a lot of the families that had money were born basically 50, 70 years ago. They make the money after the Second World War, and now they're getting older, and they're basically giving their money to their kids as inheritance. And their kids, you know what? They're like 30. Which means their mindset is different. Maybe not all of them. Some of them are assholes. That's fine. But they are ready to understand that world. And that same shift happened. $17 trillion. A lot of it is managed in Switzerland, where, of course, I live. I was born in, so it's very easy for me to say. But it's really a massive opportunity. I think this is changing the world much more than all the technologies we talk about in such conferences. We're rewiring the way we work. We're rewiring the way we do business completely. The reason we created companies in the first place was to allow people to be physically together, because the cost of transaction was too high if you were in Dubai and your colleague was in Bangalore. Now, with the technologies we invented to make our lives better, you can have these network systems, meaning that the traditional way of doing business, the traditional way of creating a company is shifting. And that scares the shit out of our actually large corporations, trust me. Who we are, where do we want to go, and how do we get there? If you ask any of these three questions to Siri, it will say, I'm not sure I understand. Technology has not caught up to these kind of questions. Technology cannot understand the DNA of what we are as human beings. Technology cannot understand emotions, what we create. It cannot yet, at least. So that's an opportunity for us to still drive technology, and not, as many people say, we should be driven by technology, or we're afraid of being driven by technology. We have that ability as human beings, as being resilient and emotional beings. We can create those journeys. I love travel. I love travelers because, like fathers, mothers, like, of course, entrepreneurs, like innovators, what we do, we go to unknown territories. A good traveler is someone who goes to a country, is not afraid of going to a new country. It's an unknown territory. Someone who creates a startup does the same thing. You start a startup, you start a company, you start an innovation, you don't know where you're going, and you're still going. The same applies, of course, to mothers and fathers. The first time you have a baby, you don't know what you're doing. People have told you in books what you're supposed to do, but you don't know what you're doing, you still do it. That's exactly what you're supposed to do in business as well, not only when you're a father and a mother. You have to actually go, accept the fact that it's completely unknown, and that's going to be fine. Where will come the unknown? People that are successful will come the fact that it's unknown. The good travelers, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, and the parents. I believe, because I'm an optimist, that people, the more fearless people are, and I think they are more and more in these new generations, will create a better journey, a better world for all of us. That's already happening. I've seen ecosystems that didn't exist years ago that exist nowadays, whether it's in Poland, whether it's in the Philippines. I've seen stuff that was unbelievable 20 years ago. The speed at which we create technology, the speed at which you can create at an individual level change technology is amazing. You have an opportunity. You just have to not be afraid to try to do it. That's the hard part. Where do we want to go? How do we get there? One thing, though, we have to do, that a lot of people might be afraid, we have to teach them not to be afraid. It's very hard to do. There's no one-size-fits-all here, and I don't have the time because I'm already being silent. I'm late in my presentation. So I will give you just one hint on how to do it, basically. Just one. And I was looking for a way to explain that in conferences. I was never able to find one because it's a very hard question to answer. I would always say, and I'm still saying, you have to start by disrupting yourself. You have to start by trying to change who you are, that first question, before you can be successful as a business person, or be successful as an innovator, be successful at creating a startup, or simply be successful in your personal life. You have to disrupt yourself. You have to be uncomfortable. I love being uncomfortable. Not too much, otherwise you get crazy, psychotic, but you have to disrupt yourself. How did I do this? So I took a plane, I booked myself a plane, another plane, and I went to Macau. It's the highest tower you can jump off legally. It's bungee jumping. It's 250 meters. There's no sound because I'm swearing a lot in these videos. That would not be acceptable. And basically I jumped. This is what I want you to do. You know, when I was on the platform and it was 250 meters of free fall, my entire body was telling me, what the hell are you doing, Paul? And you go like this, you're like, what the hell are you doing? Your whole body wants to retain to something. It said, no, it's not acceptable. You shouldn't do that. It's against all the rules. You know what? I did it, and look at my smile at the end. I'm really, really happy that I did so. This is exactly what you do when you create a business. At first, you don't know what you're doing, and you still do it, and you'll be fine. And if you do it once, whatever that is, then you can do it again, and you can do it again. This is why we have serial entrepreneurs. They do it once, they might fail, but they realize that, you know what, they're still alive. And they do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again. This is how you change the world. This is how you change yourself. So please, jump. I'm Paul Papadimitriou. Thank you.